Hi, everyone. Tonight I watched the Sheryl Sandberg movie, Screams Before Silence, and I took notes here and I wrote a bunch of things down. I started kind of writing what was happening in the movie, and then I stopped and realized that I don't want to do a full description about what the movie shows because it is so graphic, and I know that my children sometimes watch my YouTube videos. So I'm going to talk in generalities, and if you would like to then go ahead and hear the very, very graphic descriptions of what happened on October 7th, you can go ahead and watch her movie. But this was shocking even to me, who has been following everything that's been happening. You can check the history of my YouTube videos and see I went to Israel, I went to the sites, I went to the exhibits. But this movie really lays it out there. I have to say, Sheryl Sandberg did an excellent job asking the right questions. When people that were witnesses to the bodies that were found on October 7th say that it's clear that rape happened, she specifically says, why? Why do you say that? Their answers based on specific things that they saw, or the way the body was positioned, or the way they saw multiple bodies in the same way, that they knew that this was a targeted attack using sexual violence. Now, there are a few things that really stuck out at me. It's really hard. It's like she did a really great job just laying it all out there. And because she did that, it's difficult because these are difficult things that she described. She laid out the sexual violence against women and men that happened on October 7th by Hamas terrorists. The movie jumps back and forth around different people's testimonies. These include the testimonies of people that were taken hostages by Hamas and then were released, the testimony of women who hid and heard what was happening around them, and men as well, security officers, Zaka workers who came later, and security guards that came and saw. There some videos that are now out there that we've all seen, and she interviews the people, like, for example, the security worker that came across all the dead bodies at the festival afterwards and at the bar, and he just describes some really graphic and horrific things that make it very clear that this was targeted sexual violence against people that were in Israel. One thing that really stuck out at me, Sheryl Sandberg asked, I believe this was when she asked Sherry Mendez, is an IDF reservist at the morgue where all the victims were brought. She says that there seemed to be systematic, deliberate genital mutilation. And then Sheryl Sandberg, she asked such great questions. She asked, why would Hamas use sexual violence in this attack? The answer that was given, aside from weaponizing women, is as old as the history of humanity. But this really stuck out at me. When the body of the woman is violated, it symbolizes the body of the whole nation. And they were using women kind of as a proxy of what they think about Israel, is basically what they're saying, and what they would do. They used the word humiliation multiple times in the movie. They said it wasn't just to rape, it was to humiliate, to defile, to really leave a mark, to send a message. Over 200,000 visuals were collected, over 2,000 testimonies. They did show some of the blurred out firsthand accounts of women describing what they saw as witnesses regarding rape and sexual violence. They say that it was premeditated and preconceived. They say that the patterns of inflicting pain were done in the cruelest way, that they're going to have to redefine international criminal law to include some of these things that are unimaginable. Now, in this movie, she also includes testimonies of the Hamas terrorists themselves who were interrogated by the IDF. They not only admit, but describe exactly what they did. There was one point in the movie where Sheryl Sandberg says to a Zaka worker that she wants to see what was done. And you see them showing her pictures and describing the pictures. And there were so many pictures, and they're describing the specific mutilations that she's looking at, because there were points the bodies were so mutilated she didn't even know what she was looking at. And you can just see the shock in her face the second she's looking at these pictures and realizes what she's looking at, that she's changed. She says this is the most important work that she's ever done, and that it's so important to bear witness, and that other people who weren't there can watch the movie and can bear witness. And I highly recommend that you watch the movie. I want to say it's unbelievable, but it's believable. In fact, one of the women that was a survivor of the Nova Festival, who was a witness, she said that it was so difficult to talk about what she heard and what she saw, what she witnessed, but she only decided to come out and speak about it when she heard that people did not believe the women. But they have a lot of testimony. Again, the Zaka workers and the morgue supervisor talk about how they're the eyes and ears of the dead. They can tell what happened by examining the body, and it's their responsibility to speak out. But there were women and men who were there in the fields listening and seeing the rapes and the other horrific crimes that were happening. And they describe it. They describe it in the movie. Some of the mutilation that was done to the body, they say the objective was to obliterate their faces. There's one particular point where one of the police officers that arrives on the scene, the one who took that famous video of, where he's shocked to see all the bodies at the bar. He describes a horrific scene specifically of a dead man and two women. He goes into detail about what he sees, but it's very graphic about how the bodies are positioned, mutilated. It's like traumatizing. They also interviewed one of the men that was on the team that helped acclimate or helped to treat the kidnappees who were brought back to Israel. He saw what kind of trauma the people that came back to Israel had gone through. He just can't imagine adding another 150 days on top of that, what they're going to come back to. But he says they're ready for them, but they do expect unbelievable trauma. Another theme here in the movie was that when Hamas terrorists infiltrated Israel and came over, they had a lot of time to just do whatever they wanted to do. If the army had been there, they wouldn't have done so much damage. And then they take that a step further to say, when they're in Gaza for over 200 days now, with they're rapists, they can't imagine they can do whatever they want. They have all this time. Who's going to know? I'm flipping around just because I'm like skipping through a bunch of the graphic notes that I took. But October 7th was a crime against everybody. It was a crime against women. It was a crime against all people that want to live in a civilized society. And this movie really, really lays it out. I can't imagine after watching this movie that anybody would even have a doubt. But, we see that from the Holocaust. There are still people that question the Holocaust. It's what made me That's just a thought that came to my mind. They didn't talk about that in the movie, but that's a thought that came to my mind, that we have all this evidence, confessions, videos taken by Hamas themselves. The Nazis also, they took videos themselves and pictures themselves. They documented everything. And still today there are people that don't believe. It's called Screams Before Silence because one of the witnesses says she specifically describes hearing multiple screams around her, 20 minutes of screams. Sheryl Sandberg asked her, how do you know that these sexual crimes are being committed? And she says, because people don't scream like that for so long. And then she heard them being shot, and then there was silence. So the name of this movie is based on the testimony of one of the witnesses that they interviewed. Look, it's hard to watch, but also necessary. This is a part of history. When people talk about rights for everybody and social justice and believing women, you have to believe all women. I mean, you can see that it's difficult for them to say everything that happened because it's so hard to say what they saw. You can see that it pains them, that they go through it every time they speak it, that they relive it. So that makes it difficult, but also very, very necessary. And as I see this film, I realize that the crimes that were committed are a million times more horrific than I could have ever imagined. And to the people that are screaming resistance by any means necessary, you are the ones that need to watch this film. Shai Davidai from Columbia University said it, rape is not resistance. But this was more than rape. This was mutilation, humiliation, sexual brutality, rape, violence. This was beyond rape. Anyway, I'm going to link the movie underneath. So if you want to see the full movie, you can check that out. Now, they say in the movie that they made the editorial decision not to show all of the graphic pictures out of respect for the families. But I feel like it's enough to know that like it is there if it is needed. And if you want to see more of what my son and I saw when we were in Israel last month, I'm going to put that video right here.